Hi and welcome back to Cooking by Zoe. I wanted to share with you all on how I decorated letter C and number 7 cake. I made the letter C for my husband's birthday, as his name starts with a C, and the number 7 cake I made it for my little niece's 7th birthday. The letter C cake is a vanilla cake and the number 7 cake is a strawberry cake. Here's my precious little niece blowing out her candles.
Got the macaron out. Look at this. Macaroni, so I'm not gonna eat it.
I won't be going over on how I made and baked these cakes, but if you like, you can use my recipes from my cupcake tutorials. I'll link those down below. I used parchment paper to draw out my letter and numbers, and then I cut them out. That way it'll be easier for me to cut the cake. Here is the letter C that I already cut out, but I'm going to show you how I did this. With these cakes, I baked the night before. I covered them in saran wrap and placed them in the refrigerator. It'll be easier to do this to cut the next day, but if you want to cut the same day, you can. Just make sure your cake is completely cool. And then just place your parchment paper on top and start cutting and trimming so you get the letter C or whatever letter that you're going to be making. For these cake, I baked them in separate baking pans, a 9 by 13 inch pan. And what I did was I placed the pan over a scale and I poured in the batter, making sure that the amount of batter in each pan are equal. That way when they're baked, they're almost at same level. My cake aren't at exactly same level, but they're almost similar, so I'm not going to trim off any excess. I'm just going to leave the cake as is. And later, if I feel like they're not level, I'll just add in more whipped cream to the center. Okay, so I'm done trimming and cutting my letter C. I did cut the letter C a little thicker than expected, but I didn't want to waste any of the cake. And if you want to trim away some more of the corner, you definitely can. I'm using a non-dairy ready-to-whip whipping cream that I purchased from the store. You can also make your own whipping cream that contains dairy. I do have a recipe on that I use for my cupcakes. If you like, you can check out that tutorial. I'll link that down below. Here I already cut my number 7s, and then these are the decorations that I'm going to be using. These are macarons with Nutella filling. I'll be using raspberries, strawberries, these white chocolate unicorn colors, and these pandan crackers with strawberry filling. The piping tip that I'll be using will be 4B, which is a star piping tip. I'm using a large Wilton bag, and I'm doing a dual color in white and fuchsia pink. So those two are in separate smaller bags. I cut the bottom of the tip and I slide those 2 bags into this larger piping bag. If you don't want to use 2 separate bags, you simply can just pour in the 2 different color into the larger bag. This is how I pipe the whipped cream onto the cake. I pipe the whipped cream outlining the cake, and then I fill in the center. For the center, you can actually just do a long streak if you like, because no one is really going to be seeing the center of this bottom layer. Also, if you like, you can add in filling or fresh fruit to the center of this cake and then pipe a little amount of whipped cream on top. After I finish with the bottom layer, I'm going to add in the second layer of the cake right on top and just repeat the same process with the piping technique. Alright, so I am done piping my number 7 cake, so I'm going to start decorating this cake. I do want to point out that there really is no right and wrong on decorating this cake. You can over decorate or you can under decorate. It's really based on what you want to do, so decorate as you like, but I wanted just to share with you guys. This is how I decorate. I really have no rules on how I decorate or any kind of pattern. I just kind of go with the flow and see what I need to do and make adjustments at the end if needed. So what I did was I added 2 roses and 1 macaron to the beginning of this corner, the number 7. I added in 1 of the panda cracker, 3 raspberries, 2 strawberries, and ended up with 2 roses to the end of this corner. If you're interested and would like to learn on how to make macarons, or would like to learn on how to make other flavorings for macaron fillings, please check out my channel. I have several other tutorials on how to make macarons with different flavorings. I'll link some of those down below in the description box and you can check those out. If you're wondering how I made the peppermint macaron cookie shell, what I did was I used a 6B piping tip, which is a large star piping tip, and I painted the inside of the piping bag with pink food coloring gel, and then I poured in the macaron batter, and when you squeeze out the batter, this pattern will show. After I finished with most of my decoration, I took a look and see if I wanted to make any adjustment. I decided I wanted to add an extra rose to this cake, so I'm moving aside the raspberry and strawberries and adding in 1 more rose. I have a few empty spots, so I'm just going to add in a few more smaller decorations. Lastly, I'm going to add these white sprinkles onto the top of my strawberries just to add a finishing touch. Here is my finished number 7 cake. For my letter C cake, I'm using Wilton 2A tip. I do recommend using a tip just slightly larger than this, but this was actually my largest size. So when you pipe out, then you want to just make sure you're piping it a little bit wider. So I skipped showing the process because it's pretty much the same as what I shown previously. I just wanted to share with you guys how I decorated this cake. I used strawberry covered in chocolate, some pretzels, and then some macarons. And then I also used these Ferrero Rocher and then these wafers as well. Lastly, I'll be adding these mini alcohol bottles. I do recommend using the plastic one over the glass one because the glass one tend to be a little bit heavier for your cake. Alrighty, so here is my letter C cake that I have decorated. Thanks so much for watching on how I decorated these cakes.